Hi, welcome to another episode of Biz Pointz, brought to you by the Courtcamp Group. I'm Larry Courtcamp, your host. For each episode, we introduce you to popular topics, trending ideas, smart technology, and the people that are making a difference in the small business community. We've got a great show for you today, so let's get started.
Create a stronger and more dynamic business. Larry Courtcamp, founding partner at the Courtcamp Group, talks with industry insiders about trending topics moving the needle, or not, for local business today. Here's your host, Larry Courtcamp.
I have two great guests today that coming from a local representation of a Dallas-based corporation called Triumph Business Capital. We have Sarah Williams from El Paso. She's the VP and sales manager for Triumph. And we have Deb Myers. Deb's based locally. She's our referral partner manager. I want to welcome you both to the show today, and I'm excited about our conversation because it deals with an aspect of small business that we all know and dear. It's cash. It's money. So to get things rolling, Triumph Business Capital, what is that? Maybe Sarah, would you kind of give us an idea of what Triumph does?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having Deb and I here today, Larry. So Triumph Business Capital is a company that has been in business since 2004. We're a financial services company, a subsidiary of Triumph Bank Corp, which is a publicly traded financial services company. Triumph Bank Corp is a regional bank. Some of our Dallas listeners and watchers might recognize Triumph. So it's a regional bank with a presence here in Dallas, based in Dallas, and branches in Colorado, New Mexico, throughout Texas, Oklahoma. Triumph Business Capital is the factoring division of Triumph Bank Corp. Triumph Bank Corp is also a commercial insurance company. We have an equipment finance division, so a wide variety of financial services offered through Triumph. And our company services small and medium-sized businesses throughout the United States.
Okay, it's a long list of things that you do.
It is.
And we've talked before, and what I really wanted to focus on today was the part of the business that's most intriguing to most of the people that I deal with each day, which is the factoring portion of your business. Mm-hmm. We've kind of know a little bit about factoring, but not enough to really know what that means. Deb, can you kind of give us a little idea of what do we mean when we say factoring?
Well, it's more than a math term, Larry.
Okay.
So factoring, when companies need to optimize cash flow and they prefer to not wait out payment terms, they can sell their open account receivables to a factoring company such as us, Triumph Business Capital, and we advance up to 100%. We do the billing, the collections, and that helps relieve the stress from the client and allows us to help them out to save them time and money. And what business owner doesn't need more of that, right?
Oh, and you say that so calmly, but a lot of the points that you covered in there are huge to our small business clientele. So when you say you forward them cash up to 100% or whatever that number happens to be,
right,
you're actually forwarding. How is that process actually handled? It's not like a traditional bank loan. You're actually doing what? You're purchasing their receivables, correct? Is that by invoice? Is that by client? How does that work?
That's right. So a small business owner, small or medium-sized business owner would reach out to us. They would establish an account with us, and at that point, they're eligible for factoring their receivables, and they would do that on an invoice-by-invoice basis. They would sell us an invoice if they had a need for cash up front on that receivable. So they'd sell that invoice to us, and it's a very flexible option, which I think is what we really want to drive home, is that it's absolutely one of the most flexible and easy to qualify financing options that are available to businesses. Yeah. So they would do that on an invoice level basis, and they'd decide which invoices that they wanted to factor. They would send us those invoices, and we would turn around and advance them funds. And that's a sale. So they would sell us that invoice, we advance the funds, and now that invoice is on our books, and we're pending payment from their customer rather than them having to wait for payment for their customer.
So as a consultant, I talk to businesses all the time, and cash flow obviously is a huge component of their business.
For sure.
And we often see businesses that live in that roller coaster lifestyle that they have to. And most small businesses are typically cash strapped to a certain extent. Their business may be seasonal or driven by other factors that they can't control. And a lot of it is the customers that they're selling to. So the idea of being able to have access to cash or funding to kind of level their lives out is very appealing to a lot of these small businesses. So I've used it in practical examples for myself, where I have a larger client, say a large retailer that I've sold products to, where they're not going to pay me for maybe 90 days out.
Right.
But my costs relating to that invoice may start a lot quicker than that, today or tomorrow. I might have a payroll to meet or what have you. So in this case, you would be taking over that receivable to that particular client, and then it becomes your responsibility to collect that.
Correct.
Now that client took me a long time to get, Sarah. Are you going to handle that collections nicely? Is it truly collections, or are you just really managing that payment?
We're really just managing the payment process for them. So it isn't collections in the way people traditionally think of a collection agency contacting their customer and berating them and requesting payment immediately. We work in accordance with our clients' payment terms. So one of the most important things to remember is that we have clients in various industries, so across a lot of different types of industries, and as such, they're going to have different payment terms, not just for different industries, but for different customers. So we're not going to be reaching out to that customer for payment status until the invoice is due. We obviously want to allow their customers the time that they've allotted to process payment and send that payment. So when we're reaching out, we're doing it in support of our client, and we are waiting out the payment terms. And if the payment hasn't arrived, then we will reach out to their customer and we will check on payment status. And oftentimes that allows our clients, obviously, to forego the responsibility of having someone in their office routinely making collection calls or getting updates on payment status. We take that responsibility from the client, but it also allows us the ability to find out if there are any problems or maybe disputes or reasons for a payment delay that might need to be addressed by our client, and then we can work with them to resolve whatever those issues might be. So it's not just collecting payment status and collecting payment, but it's also serving as a back office support system for our clients so that they have the ability to free up some of their time and allow us to help them maintain that status. And it's sometimes a difficult thing for clients to reach out to their customers for payment status.
I was just going to say, from my perspective as a
absolutely.
consultant and talking to small businesses as often as we do, trying to get, that is a very, very sensitive area within businesses. And it's sensitive not only to the business owner because it's very important for them to collect those receivables, but it also puts that employee that they've tasked to do that in the hot seat as well. And nobody wants to upset the apple cart with big customer A, you know, that everybody, we need the business, but we also need our money and we need it on hand. So being able to help to relieve some of that pressure off a customer is, off a client is awesome. And it relieves a lot of pressure and tension within the office and the morale. So that's a great feature that I don't think a lot of people, including myself, really truly valued until I've talked with you girls about that. I've worked with collections agencies before, and that's a whole different methodology compared to what we're talking about today. So, Deb, a question for you, factoring. Does it fit all businesses, or are there certain businesses that factoring really is a better fit for than others?
Well, some of the companies, some examples of companies that have benefited from our services are a company that is selling goods or services to their customers and required to extend payment terms. It could be an established business that is just in need of more working capital. A startup company that doesn't have a established credit history. And if you have some payments that you are required to make on a timely manner, and waiting out payment terms just isn't it working, perhaps they're needing to make payroll, insurance, equipment loans, and they're in need of working capital, then factoring is a great solution.
So it may not necessarily be it's not for a restaurateur, obviously,
Right.
helping with a client or a typical retailer store, but a more traditional B2B or industrial or manufacturing client. I could see where that would be very advantageous.
Absolutely. So, it spans across almost every industry, and manufacturing, distribution, transportation, any service, B2B business.
Okay. I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but I would like to know a little bit more about the process. We'll be taking a short break soon. Maybe we can talk about that in the second half of our show. But for the time being, are there? I know you started life kind of in the trucking industry, obviously for a variety of different reasons. But now you're not specifically. It may give off the impression that that's the only thing you do, but you don't. You do a tremendous amount of different industries. And I know, Sarah, you and I were talking about staffing and some things that I really didn't think of as potentially using factoring to balance cash flows.
Yeah, well, as Deb mentioned, there's so many different industries that can use factoring. So really, any small to medium-sized business selling goods or services to another business who is required to offer payment terms. And to be quite honest, not all of our clients are offering or have payment terms of 90 days or very long payment terms. Some of our clients will come to us because they have payment terms of 14 days or 21 days.
That's a great thing to cover, and we'll cover that as soon as we get back.
Okay,
For right now,
sounds
we're going to
good.
take a short break, hear a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back soon.
We'll be right back with more Biz Points featuring Larry Kortkamp after these messages.
The American business economy is positioned as it has never been before. Professional videography is a core element for attracting a higher level of engagement with the people group you need for significant impact. Now is your time to shine. My name is Bill Brock, owner of White Rock Films, and I invite you to a powerful opportunity in the marketplace, an opportunity to draw excited people to your events, an opportunity to showcase your ideas on infrastructure, an opportunity to become known as the industry authority and enjoy the associated benefits of a strong, influential brand. Video highlights, video teaches. Video puts a resistant market at ease, and video stirs the hearts and imaginations of your allies and strategic client base. White Rock Films offers full audio, video production for businesses ready to embrace the future, handling your project with professionalism, experience, and polish unheard of in the industry. My name is Bill Brock, and White Rock Films wants your business. See us online at whiterockfilms.com.
Hi, welcome back to Biz Points. Today we're talking with Sarah Williams and Deb Myers of Triumph Business Capital, and they're explaining factoring to us. So before the break, we were talking about a little bit more detail on factoring, and the fact I always think of it as a long-term, or a solution for a long-term receivable that I've got. You were explaining that it was for longer services or longer receivables, maybe 60 to 90 days, but that's not necessarily the case. It can be for shorter terms. Why would that be an instance?
Well, I think in particular, I think of our staffing clients and their need to make payroll on a weekly basis. And not just a staffing client, but a company who has a weekly payroll need. So terms of 14 to 21 days can cause a constraint that can cause a bit of stress for a business owner who needs to make payroll. Sometimes they'll have a weekly obligation or a bi-weekly obligation. So any obligation that is going to come up that might be due before 90 days or 60 days out, you still have a need to bridge that gap between invoicing and payment. And because this is a financing solution and you don't go to a bank and draw on your line of credit, your receivables are going to be what you use to access those funds. So you can sell receivables at any time. You might bill your customer and not have an immediate need to factor that invoice or to have an advance on that invoice.
Gotcha.
But you can wait until you do have a need for the funds on that invoice and then request an advance. And so there's a lot of flexibility in how the program is built, and it's really customized to fit the needs of each one of our clients.
Which brings up a question. So, Deb, you and I have talked before, but you talk to clients all the time. What's the biggest misconception of factoring that you hear from business? They're nervous or they're scared. Why? What would prevent them from starting to investigate this as an option for them?
I think for a lot of people, one, the small business owners, and even others, they're not aware of factoring, what it is, if it's something that would be something that is a good fit for them. I think that they have a misconception that factoring maybe isn't affordable.
I was going to say my biggest
Yes.
misconception, having talking to you, is the cost. Right? It's. I always think that most of our businesses operate on very small margins, so I always think it's going to eliminate my margin. I'm not going to make any money, but that's not
the
true.
case.
That's not the case.
I think it used to be years ago, but today we're right in line with bank pricing.
And the other item that I like about factoring that most people don't understand, in a traditional banking relationship, the onus is on me as the borrower. You're really looking at me, my credit rating, my credit history, how much cash I have, all that information and data, as opposed to factoring where a lot of that burden is transferred to my customer. So in most cases, a lot of these smaller companies are selling to much larger, more established companies that have a lot better credit and a lot better picture as far as the world is concerned. So with that pressure being off, it makes getting this cash, I would imagine, much easier for most of these companies. You mentioned startups. That's almost unheard of to get money for a startup.
Yeah, it's absolutely so much easier to qualify for factoring than it is a line of credit or, a more traditional type of financing. But factoring now, I view, after being in the industry for so many years, as a traditional means of financing, because I think a lot of people don't understand just how many companies actually use factoring. And like you said, we're looking at the credit worthiness of their customer. That is the qualification. So it's so much easier to go through the setup process and establish an account with a factoring company, because at the end of the day, we're not looking at your balance sheet. We're not looking at your credit history. We have some clients who've come to us after having filed for bankruptcy and having lost the ability to access bank financing. And they'll come to us because factoring is a solution that will work for a company who's had a bit of a challenge in terms of their credit history. So, it's just so much, there's so many types of companies and so many different sets of circumstances that can qualify for this kind of financing. But ultimately, as long as your customer is creditworthy, and they don't have to be a Fortune 100 company, they can be a medium-sized business.
And speaking of that, how about time? Talking about time constraints, without getting too much into the weeds here, what's an ideal time frame? So if I decide I want to do this as company A, what's the process? How long does it take? Is it better to establish an account in advance? Is it better to, what's the best way for the customer to approach this?
Yeah, well, I think that when you have a need, when you recognize that you're going to have a need, it's best then to start looking for a factoring option. Because if you wait until the order is in hand, there is a setup process. And one of the benefits to factoring as opposed to bank financing, where it might take 3 to 4 weeks for a traditional lender to review your credit information and make a determination about whether or not you qualify. With factoring, you're looking at a process of about a week at most, from start to finish. So it's a very simple process. You're not, again, because we're not looking at financials and credit history, so there's very little documentation that you're going to have to present to establish an account. So really it's just submitting an application, submitting a few pieces of documentation, and you're on your way. And you can, the nice thing about setting up an account is that you can qualify to factor invoices you may have already billed. So perhaps those invoices are 30 days out from payment or 20 days out. We can factor invoices you've already billed as well as new transactions once your account is in place.
So my company's based here in the Dallas area, but my customer is in Teaneck, New Jersey. Is that a problem for me?
No.
Deb, can you handle that
We
customer?
can handle
Yeah.
that, absolutely.
How about if they're in Beijing? Is that going to be a problem for me?
It might not be something we can help with, but
we have partners.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Deb can speak to this because her responsibility is building a network of partners that can be a solution for our clients. So I know she can speak to some of the different partnerships that we have.
So
You mentioned banking earlier too, along these same lines. Is there a way to leverage my banking relationship with Triumph as well as my factoring, or are the two kind of separated in some manner?
I don't think so much between factoring and the banking part of it, but certainly if they're a customer on the factoring side and they're looking towards the equipment financing or the insurance, then that's certainly something that we can customize a package.
Okay. Well, we've covered a lot of points. This is such an important factor, not to misuse the term, but factor in most businesses. This is what you do all the time. I know, Sarah, you've been involved in this for a number of years. Is there any point that we haven't talked about today that I'd like to leave my viewers with that they need to remember on factoring?
Well, I think the only thing that I would mention is that you want to make sure when you're choosing a factoring company, and there's so many that are out there, that you're choosing the one that's the right fit for you and for your business. So you'll want to make sure that they specialize in your industry, that they have clients in their portfolio that are in your industry, so they understand your unique needs. You'll want to look at contract terms, and are you going to be obligated? How long? Are you comfortable with the requirements of the factoring company as it extends to a contract? Because there will be, it's a relationship, so there will be an agreement that is signed by the factoring company and the client. You want to make sure you're comfortable with that. Ask for client references. Talk to some of the clients who have been with that company and get their experience, get a sense of what that experience has been, and if you think that this is the right fit for you based on what their clients have experienced.
Personally,
so just doing a little homework.
And personally, I like the fact that you're headquartered here in the DFW area instead of Chicago or New York, which quite frankly, most of the banking or financial institutions are. So thank you very much for being with me today. This information was hugely important for our audience, and we're glad that you're here. And Triumph Business Capital, it should be your first stop when you're looking for anything that you need as far as your financial needs. Thank you today for enjoying our episode with us on Biz Pointz. We look forward to you tuning in at the next time as well. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
You've been enjoying Biz Points with Larry Courtcamp, brought to you by the Courtcamp Group. To be a guest or request sponsorship information, contact the Courtcamp Group at 972-824-8002 today. Production and programming information requests for the OBBM network should be directed to Offbeat Business Media by calling 214-714-0000. 0495 or send your request to info@offbeatbusiness.com. BizPoint's TV, podcast, and radio show are produced by Offbeat Business Media for the OBBM network. Unauthorized use of logos, audio, video, or reproduction is strictly prohibited.